we just got the live stream of ArenaNet's development team regarding the new 3 elite specs that we got this week. So the Ritualist, the Paragon, and the Antiquary. In this video, I cover all the details, everything that you need to know about the Ritualist. And I can tell you, the Ritualist looks really cool. I'm really excited for this one. And I think a lot of you minion enjoyers will be as well. As always, special shout out to all my generous supporters that help me keep the lights on. And now without much further ado, let's jump straight in and overanalyze. As you can see in the background, that's the developer livestream. Check out the developer livestream in the description below of this video as well if you want to watch it yourself. I just try to concisely summarize everything and give you my take on every single attack and trait. So you can see here the Ritualist has 3 F skills on top of the normal Shroud skill. So you have still a normal Death Shroud that works exactly the same as the normal Necromancer, Core Necromancer Shroud. So it will tank your hits, it will refill with life force. You just have 3 additional skills that, so to say, control to some extent your spirits that you summon. The spirits that you can summon will be Anguish, Wanderlust, and Preservation. And they are similar to Guild Wars 1. A lot of Ritualist stuff is similar to Guild Wars 1. So if you played that game, you actually know a lot of the names, I guess. And let's talk over it. The spirits that you can summon in the Shroud, so you need to go in the Shroud to summon the spirits. You can use the 2, 3, and 4 skill, depending on which spirit you want to summon. They are exactly corresponding to your F skills as well. So the 2 skill will summon Anguish in Shroud, and the F2 skill will rupture Anguish. That means that it will destroy your Anguish, deal some damage around it, and grants might and fury to nearby allies. So it's like a boon buffing by also dealing some damage, but it will destroy the spirit, so the spirit will not be longer lingering around. This attack will also happen when the spirit expires, so that we will get to it later with the traits, how this happens exactly, but you can either do it actively or it will passively happen. So that's quite nice. The same goes for all the other rupture traits and rupture skills. If you rupture Wanderlust, you will get a fear effect around it. That is obviously, Shroud has almost always a fear effect, so that's quite nice. And it will destroy the spirit again. If you rupture Preservation, which is so to say your defensive spirit, you will give boons to nearby allies and yourself, which are actually quite potent. So it will be Aegis, Resistance, and Stability. Quite nice as well, especially as Necromancer doesn't have access to them that easily. So really, really cool that we will get it here. Now let's talk about the Shroud. So like I said, in the Shroud, you get the summon the spirits. So the 2 skill will summon Anguish, the 3 skill will summon Wanderlust, and the 4 skill will summon Preservation. The Anguish skill spirit will be aggressive, so it will do an attack at the beginning that will do some damage and will be bonus damage if the target is controlled, and it will do even more bonus damage if the target has multiple conditions. So depending on how many conditions it has, it does more damage. You will also do an attack as the Ritualist, so that will also be nice to set up things. And keep in mind, this is lingering around the spirit after that and will do some auto attack that does some damage. It does not have a crazy other effect other than still dealing some damage, but the initial attack will also apply a buff. So your initial attack, the Ritualist initial attack, called Painful Bond, that will stay there for 10 seconds on the target, and it will take more damage from all summoned creatures. So that will not only include the spirits, but also your minions. So that's so to say your minion monster, like crazy good traits, so for that you actually get a lot of damage on this target. Really cool. And your auto attack in Shroud will just do some damage and will command, so to say, your spirits to attack this target. So if there are multiple targets around, this will be, so to say, the command to actually attack this specific target. So you can control them to some extent. Otherwise, the spirits will stay stationary and will just use their ranged auto attack. So here you can see the auto attack. It does just some nice damage, 900 range, and it will deal more damage for each spirit that you currently have active. So if you have 3 spirits active, you get a 45% damage increase on this. It's just quite nice. It's still power damage. So this spec will be either played as a support spec for some kind of quickness support, or you will play it as a full power DPS or maybe some kind of hybrid, but it will not be some kind of Condi spec typically, because there is not that much Condi application going on at all. There you can see Wanderlust. This is, like I said, a little bit more CC focused. So the initial attack of the Ritualist does some daze and some power damage, whereas the Wanderlust attack does some damage, some knockdown, and then it will pulse some just chill and just other nasty conditions. So it's really annoying. It's more like a really hard and soft CC skill. and is not only about damage, whereas the second attack is only about damage, I would say. Again, it will linger around after it did its attack and will do just some auto attack that does some damage. If you use the fourth skill in your Shroud, you will summon Preservation, which will do an initial attack that heals and cleanses condition. This is an interesting attack, I will get to it back later, but you will also do an initial attack that applies protection and vigor to allies. This attack from Preservation is also healing allies as well and also cleanses for them. The interesting part about this attack is that it will also heal you even though you are in Shroud. So normally a necromancer in Shroud can't receive any healing if you're not a Harbinger, but this will still heal you. This is a special skill, so only this skill will heal you. Keep that in mind. Not normal heals, but this skill will still heal you. So very interesting concept, but that's how it goes. And Preservation will also linger around, will also deal a damaging auto attack, but it will be lower damage than the other two spirits because this one will also heal a little bit, the auto attack of it. And the last skill in Shroud is Summon Spirits. This is a really fun one because it has a 20-second cooldown in PvE and it is a 900 range teleport. So it's really cool. Necromancer gets no teleport in Shroud, really strong. And the spirits will teleport to you as well. So that you can just reposition yourself with the spirits because otherwise they would be stationary. And that's quite strong, I would say, in situations where you just want to reposition once and get for example, out of a fight or whatever, and you can take your spirits with you. So quite nice. Quite similar, I would say, to Mechanist's Shift Signet, for example. Really strong Shroud, I would say, overall. And don't forget, you have your Rupture skills here that you can still use while you're in Shroud as well. So you can summon a spirit and rupture it if you just want to get the initial attack and then get the boons out of it, for example, or the fear effects. So there is some really nice, interesting gameplay concept there that you don't always have to have them lingering around. Now let's talk about the weapon spells, which is the skills that we get with this lead spec. The healing skill will be the Resilient Weapon. It will just heal you, and this will also be shared to your allies. That's the same for all weapon skills, but at a reduced duration or reduced amount of stacks. So this will just heal for 6 seconds, pulses, heals each second, and if you are below 50%, you will get 50% more healing, and if you do this for your allies, it will stay for 3 seconds instead of 6, and it will also give you a damage reduction buff that is more potent if you're below 50%, and the same goes for allies. So a unique damage reduction buff that stays around for 6 or 3 seconds, depending on if it's on you or your ally. So quite interesting. Again, a unique buff that we see with this spec. Really interesting to see that they are now not as scared anymore to give us unique buffs. I'm looking forward to trying that out. This spec already looks quite crazy for PvP. Just with the annoying AoE and stuff, but also with the bunkering. I highly suspect this being meta in PvE as well, but in PvP for sure. This looks like a quite potent healing skill, I would say. Then we have the weapon spell Splinter Weapon. This is just a very interesting attack that will just give you 5 stacks that will just deal AoE damage when you hit an enemy with it. And the allies will get 3 of that. And it's just a small radius around the enemy that you hit that will just deal another damaging hit after that. That can be quite potent because you can proc all your on-hit effects again with that. So that's really interesting because we get another weapon scale skill that actually scales with that. And that one being the Nightmare Weapon. So whenever you hit an enemy with that, depending on how many stacks you have, you will siphon health, so just lifesteal. And if you use that, for example, with the previously shown weapon spell, you actually get a really, really strong just lifesteal, and it also applies some vulnerability on top of that. So you can also, again, share that with allies with a lower amount of stacks. Quite interesting concept. Then we have Weapon of Remedy. This is like, so to say, a little bit more defensive because the other two were offensive. This is not defensive. It's just a condi cleanse. Each second, 1 condition cleansed from you and your allies. For yourself, it's for 5 seconds. For allies, it's 3 seconds. And every time you cleanse a condition with this, you will get a healing of 400 in PvE here. And this is obviously quite strong because it will not only cleanse but also heal you. Nice condi cleanse if you don't want to cleanse all of them at once. And then the last one, Weapon of Warding. This is like the only one that is really supportive in a defensive way because it will block attacks. For you it's 3, for your allies it's 1. And gain protection when the last stack is removed. So also for your allies, of course. And you also get some region. That's quite nice as well. So you get more defensive boons. And the allies, like I said, will also get this block, but only once. And you get a stun break. So it's not for allies, only for you. But it's nice to have a stun break on your utility skills as well. And the lead skill is also a stun break, which is in contrast to the utility skill, also a stun break for your allies. This one is really potent. You can see this clearly that all the elite skills are actually quite potent, those elite specs on this expansion, because this one is on 75-second cooldown. And like I said, stun break for yourself and allies. It also gives some stability, not too long in duration, only one stack, but better than none, I guess. And it will make you, so to say, the next 2 hits for you as the necromancer, or 1 hit for the allies that you shared with, reduce the damage. So that means when you take damage over a percentage of your maximum health, heal for the difference, then steal life from that foe. The health threshold here is 5%, so if you get damaged over 5%, you will heal for the difference and steal then some life from them. You will not prevent going downstate with this, but if you survive, you actually get a nice heal. So keep that in mind. This is an interesting defensive skill that works very well against hard-hitting attacks because they will heal you quite potently. But if it's a multi-hit skill like rapid fire or something like that hits multiple times, it does not work that well. Even sometimes it might not even proc. So keep that in mind. It is a nice defensive skill also for your allies, but it's not always perfectly defensive. Sometimes it's not very useful. And the life siphon here is just a nice on top of that so that you can heal on top of that as well. Really interesting concept. We will go now to the traits, and you can see there are actually quite a lot of interactions with those interesting concepts again as well. If you want to see all the other elite specs, be sure to subscribe to not miss out on my detailed analysis. And if you like this analysis, be sure to leave a like. But now let's talk about the traits. So now we're here at the traits. The traits are obviously quite interesting. The first one is not that interesting because it will just explain the mechanic of the Ritualist. The second minor trait here gives you life force when you summon a creature. This will also work while you're in Shroud. So you summon your spirits and you will get life force, but it also works for your minions that you summon. So you can get a lot of life force using minions. So this is really like a minion mancer spec. And then your rupture skills are just explained by this skill. This is how it works. Then we get the first trait here that you can select. Wandering Spirits. Spirits teleport to you before they perform the auto attack. So whenever they are about to perform the auto attack, they teleport to you. So you are like a little bit more movement oriented so that you can reposition yourself. I think that makes sense in open world if you want to just move from a different, like have an escort mission or something like that. Or if you want to just be more flexible in competitive modes and walk around and not have the stationary there. But I think this is not the best in a lot of situations because in raid fights and strike missions, typically you don't have to move that much. And in PvP, for example, you're fighting a node anyway, and then you leave the spirits and they have a ranged auto attack. So it's not that important that they are extremely close to the target. So I think this is like not too crazy of a trait, but maybe I'm missing something. And then we have Spirit's Gift. This one is way better. Heal and remove conditions from allies when you summon a creature. This is again for minions as well. And the healing is actually quite potent here, and it removes the conditions. So it's actually really, really strong trait, I would say, because you can actually have a lot of minions, a lot of trade interactions with that. I think it makes a lot of sense to take that on a heal thing, but even on an offensive build in competitive modes as a bruiser, I think this is a really potent trait. And then we have Explosive Growth. That means whenever you summon a creature, again, minion or spirit, you deal some damage. That's the most offensive one. That is the power-oriented one for PvE. And I think this is the one that you probably will not take in competitive modes that much because the other one is just way better as a bruiser. But if you want to be really aggressive, I think that makes sense there, even there. The radius is not that big, but it's probably also not the high damage that we see here. It's typically PvE and world versus world split, for example. But I really expect this to be a really offensive powerhouse for PvE. Wielder's Remedy. Whenever you use your weapon skills, they remove 2 conditions from affected allies. This is really interesting because this will remove 2 conditions from you and 1 condition from allies. And it's really interesting with another trait coming up, but this is a really potent Condi cleanse now because your weapon spells are not too long on a cooldown and you can actually get a lot of Condi cleanses this way, even for your allies. Then you get Empowering Spirits. Grant boons to nearby allies when you summon a spirit. That means you will get quickness all the time. Does not depend on which spirit you summon. Quite nice to get some quickness up for. That's why you can be a quickness support, either full heal or going for an offensive support, but still really nice. And you will also, depending on the spirit, provide might, fury, or resolution. So quite nice on top of that. The resolution might be weird because you say, protection would be more reasonable, but preservation already provides protection baseline, so you get resolution and protection, so it's actually quite defensive then. So really good trait, definitely worth taking in PvE if you want to be anything like a boon support. And I think in competitive modes, it might even be worthwhile running as well. And then Spirit Strength, your spirits deal more damage and their healing is increased. This is definitely a PvE trait. I think you will probably not take that in competitive modes ever. 50% increase of effectiveness for the damage, but also for preservation for the healing effect of the auto attack and also the normal damage. So definitely a trait that you would take in PvE if you want to be a full DPS. If you want to be a healer, maybe it's worth for preservation, but I think the damage increase is more potent. And of course, you always, if you want to be the healer, want to have the quickness, so we would never take it there. So I think this is a really niche trait that you will probably only take in PvE for a full DPS build. And this is the trait that really interacts very well with a lot of other things here. Weapon spells now are fully received by their allies. So that means that you, instead of, for example, going for 5 seconds for yourself and 3 for your allies, means that they will receive 5 seconds, or that you get 6 stacks of something and they will also receive 6 stacks of it. So that's really important, especially with the Condi Cleanse trait that we saw earlier, but also of course with all the baseline weapon spells that you have. So really, really strong here. You can share it way more effectively, and if you are already running a lot of weapon spells, that's probably the trait that you will take here. Really, really strong trait, helps a lot to support your allies. And don't forget, that's the important part here, the weapon spells are not only for your allies, so your real players, but it also shared with your minions. So if you put that on your minions, if you're minion monster and you're still alone, you get this effect, so to say, solo. So you can actually double up on the weapon spells even if you don't have any real allies around you, just the NPCs. So keep that in mind. Really, really strong, really potent as a minion monster. Then you have Lingering Spirits. This is a trait that we already got teased in blog post we got on Wednesday. So your spirits persist when you exit the Ritualist Shroud, but they continue to drain your life force. And this is a weird training. So it will take a screenshot of how much life force you have when you leave the Shroud, and then it calculates how long it will drain. And even if you get life force after that, that means it will still stop draining, because there was a screenshot when you had 50% of the life force. That means it will like linger around for 15 seconds. Even if you go back up to 100%, it will still stop after 15 seconds. So it's a weird interaction, but that's how it works. And it's also so that the attack interval goes down of the normal attacks. So instead of the normal, I think 3 seconds in that attack interval, it's now 2 seconds. So they will just attack a little bit faster. Obviously really strong in a power build if you want to have a lot of damaging auto attacks from the spirits. And the last trait is also very interesting, Soul Twisting. The first spirit skill you use when entering Ritualist Shroud recharges instantly, so you can double up on this attack that you get from this one. So that's really cool, because that means that you can, for example, get 2 healing procs from the preservation if you're a healer, or you can go 2 times CC if you want to go with Wanderlust, or if you want to go for full damage, you can go 2 times Anguish. That's a really aggressive skill, really front-loaded, but you would not get a lot of value after that. So typically you would probably take that for if you want to get a nice burst out or a lot of burst healing. You would probably not take that if you want to have a long, consistent DPS. You would probably take the middle trait rather to get some more auto attacks of your spirits out, because there can only be one of the spirits. Of course, you can't summon 2 Anguishes at the same time. So as soon as you summon a new one, the old one will expire and you will get the rupture effect happening. So keep that in mind. The rupture effect will happen when you destroy it actively with the F2, F3 or 4, but it will also happen when you expire your spirit. So when you use your, for example, the Anguish twice, you will get the rupture effect once between those 2 summons and at the end of the Anguish as well. Keep in mind, the spirits normally without the lingering trait will deactivate and rupture when you leave Shroud, so they can't linger around after the Shroud. So you will get the rupture effects all the time happening when you leave Shroud. They will only linger around with the middle trait here, and then you can use this, so to say, out of Shroud. Typically you would use the rupture F skills in Shroud if you don't have the middle trait here. That's how it works. I personally think it looks really promising as a PvE build for sure, and I think really, really promising in competitive modes as well, because of all the AoE and just nasty attacks, because the spirits are not targetable, so they are like just doing the attack and you can't change that. The only way to actually destroy those spirits is by forcing the necromancer out of Shroud, so either destroying the Shroud or just forcing him out in general. This is really like nasty, so you can't counterplay too much of them. And they deal probably quite a lot of damage, has a lot of boon uptime, and just really nasty support with their weapon spells as well. So I think this is a really, really strong elite spec. And a lot of potent interactions. I think it's really cool with all the core traits and the interactions. And yeah, I can't wait to actually try it. And of course, do some theory crafting. Let me know your takes in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. If you're now convinced to buy this expansion because of this cool elite spec, be sure to use my referral link if you haven't pre-ordered already. Thanks again to all my supporters, and I hope to see you all in the next video.